Yeah. I stand by, because I want to bring someone in. We'll get back to you guys. Stand by, because I want to bring in now Congressman Elijah Cummings and also Congressman Eric Swalwell, both of them Democrats. Good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. Congressman Cummings, start with you. Your reaction to tonight's event?
Well, I'm not surprised. It seems as if when Ms. Yates appeared yesterday, I said to myself, we're going to have a new issue tomorrow. And we have constantly seen, Don, this movement of hocus pocus when something gets seems to get close to the Russian investigation. The next thing you know, we moved on to another issue. But there's something that your guests don't seem to understand. One of the reasons why, keep in mind, Comey came to our committee, the Oversight Committee, back in the summer and made this announcement about how he thought Hillary Clinton was sloppy, but he wasn't going to prosecute. I told him at that hearing, I said, they are coming after you. That is, the Republicans don't like what you're doing, and they are going to put you on trial. The thing that your guests don't know is that after that decision was made not to prosecute, they basically, the Republicans on the Oversight Committee, subpoenaed almost every single document in the FBI file. And I think that what happened with Comey is that he came back later on, closer to the election, to make those announcements, because I think he was concerned that they would come after him. That's what I believe. But again, I think the timing of this is horrible. I mean, if we look at it, Don, the president treated Flynn far better than he treated the FBI director. Yeah. I mean, the FBI director didn't even know he was being fired. Yeah. And while Flynn had 18 days after the president even knew that he had lied to the vice president. We've got to get to the bottom of this. I think the fact that there is a grand jury and that questioning is now being opened up, I think you're going to see a whole new escalation of this case.
I want to ask you something, Congressman Swalwell, because I know you both of you, Congressmen, have been privy to information, classified information, and you know what's happening with the investigation. There is reporting tonight, CNN and others, as the Washington Post said, reporting that the White House and the Attorney General had pushed the FBI to pursue leaks rather than pushing them to pursue what the investigation was about, and that was possible collusion from the Trump campaign with Russia. Did you know anything about that, Congressman Swalwell?
Don, I hope that's not the case. Our country was attacked by Russia. There's a serious FBI investigation going on into whether any U.S. persons were involved. And to make that a priority over protecting our democracy would be a serious misjudgment. As far as firing FBI Director Comey, to the average American, this stinks. The United States is a democracy. The president can't fire the person who's investigating him. That violates bedrock principles of independence. And so Elijah Cummings and I both also wrote legislation to have an independent commission. We think that's the most comprehensive way to get to the bottom of what happened and to make sure that we never find ourselves in a mess like this again.
Your colleague, who is a ranking Intelligence Committee member, Adam Schiff, put out a statement, and it says, the decision by the president, whose campaign associates are under investigation by the FBI for collusion with Russia, to fire the man overseeing that investigation upon the recommendation of Attorney General, Attorney General, who has recused himself from that investigation, raises profound questions about whether the White House is brazenly interfering in a criminal matter. Congressman, do you see it that way? And what is the recourse, if so?
Jeff Sessions should be nowhere near the firing of Director Comey. He was supposed to be recused. And remember, Don, he was supposed to be recused because he was asked by the Senate if he had any contacts with Russia during the election. Twice, he said no. We learned later because of press reporting that he had. And so for him to be involved also raises questions. And on the Judiciary Committee, where I serve, I think we should have Jeff Sessions before us to explain just exactly why this was not, just exactly why he was involved in this while he was supposed to be recused.
Congressman Cummings, a deputy attorney. Go ahead, Congressman.
I'm just going to say I agree totally with Congressman Swalwell. I was shocked that we had a letter coming from the Attorney General with the recommendation. I assumed that any recommendation would just be solely that of the Deputy Attorney General, who I know quite well, and I think the world of. He was our U.S. Attorney here in Maryland for over 10 years. Rosenstein. But I think Rosenstein now has a duty. I think we're going to have to do two things. One, I think we need to have that independent commission as Congressman Swalwell and I have put forth. But I think we also have to make sure that an independent counsel is appointed by Rosenstein, because some kind of way, I think you basically have to have both, one checking each other.
I want to ask you, Congressman, about a little bit more about the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Says he recommended this firing because of how Comey handled the Clinton investigation, pointing to Comey's press conference on Clinton and pointing to Comey's letter before the election. But I want you to listen to President Trump when all that happened, and then we'll discuss.
I respect the fact that Director Comey was able to come back after what he did. It took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made in light of the kind of opposition he had, where they're trying to protect her from criminal prosecution. He's become more famous than me.
So, Congressman, the president didn't mind how it was handled then. So what changed?
I think whenever
what changed was that Director
Congressman
Comey.
Cummings.
Yeah, I think whenever things are going the president's way, it's fine with him. When they're not going his way, it's not fine with him. I mean, come on, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this. And I think that's why we have now moved from one issue to another, and we will see that over and over again. Basically, what we need in this whole process is integrity, transparency, and if anybody wants to see what transparency and integrity is all about, all they have to do is rewind the tape of Sally Yates and Clapper yesterday. Those are the type of public service servants who make sure that we preserve this democracy and preserve our system of justice.
Congressman Swalwell, some Republicans right now are saying, well, wait, hold on a second. Director Comey was disliked by Democrats too. Nobody was happy with him. What's your response to that?
Well, whether people were happy with him or not, he came to Congress in March and told Congress and the American people that the president's campaign was under criminal and counterintelligence investigations. At that point, unless Director Comey committed a crime, he should have been untouchable. That's the only way we could have an independent prosecution, an independent search for the truth by the FBI that would be credible and make progress. And now the president has violated that principle of independence, and I'm very concerned for our country.
Do you think we'll see a special prosecutor?
Don, one of the things that we are missing here too is that it is not normal for one who's under investigation. I practiced law for over 20 years. One who's under investigation or their associates are under investigation to be doing things that stand in the way of that investigation, or saying things. Usually what I would tell my clients is we're going to cooperate with the authorities and move on and not be constantly making comments. And I think that that's the way this should proceed. The president should not be involved in all these tweets about how he doesn't think this is happening or that's wrong. Let the process play itself out.
That was the opening to our show tonight, that this is not normal for the person investigating this administration, now fired by this administration and by this president. A quick question, do you think we'll see a special prosecutor, Congressman Swalwell?
I hope we do. I hope we have an independent commission, a special prosecutor, and that person is able to find the truth and do it with independence so that anyone that worked with Russia is held accountable, because our democracy is counting on it.
Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I want to say,
pleasure.
Any Republican congressman out there, anyone who wants to come on, you're welcome to come on this program. Even later on here on CNN, we'll be live throughout the day, throughout the evening. I want to bring in now CNN senior legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin, defense attorney Alan Dershowitz, and CNN legal analyst Laura Coates. So here we go again. You have said, you have been very outspoken about this, Jeffrey Toobin.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that there's a cover-up here? This is just beyond the realm for you.
Well, I don't know whether there's been a cover-up. What there has been is a travesty. I can't speak to the ultimate motivations of the president in why he did this. But the fact that he did this will disgrace his memory for as long as this presidency is remembered. There is only, one date that will be remembered after January 20th so far in the Trump presidency, and it's the day of the Tuesday night massacre. This is the day that Donald Trump fired the head of the FBI. The only other time the head of the FBI has ever been fired was William Sessions by Bill Clinton, and that was politically uncontroversial. So never in history have we had an FBI director fired by a president who was under investigation by the FBI. And it's just wrong, and it's obviously wrong.
Alan, some are saying this is a constitutional crisis for the president to fire the man investigating him. Do you agree with that?
Well, look, I think there are 4 separate questions that you have to ask. Should Comey be the director of the FBI? The answer to that is no. He shouldn't be the director. He should have resigned. On this show, I called for him to resign. He lost his credibility. Second question is, should it be the President of the United States who makes the decision to fire him, not while he's under an investigation? Third, and where I disagree with my friend and former student, Jeffrey, is who he appoints next. If he appoints a man or a woman of great integrity, this date will not go down and remembered in history, because we will have been proved wrong that it was some kind of a cover-up if he picks somebody who can pursue the investigation. Fourth, how about an independent commission, not a special prosecutor, there isn't probable cause, but to have an independent investigation not done by Congress, but done by people appointed by Congress. They can then decide whether to appoint a special prosecutor or recommend a special prosecutor. So I think we have to separate out those 4 separate questions.
What do you think? This is a hypothetical. If he appoints someone, you say.
Who's to say he wouldn't fire this person too? Look at his record so far. Sally Yates, gone. Preet Bharara, told that he was going to stay, gone. James Comey, gone. All 3 of whom had the potential to investigate and trouble the Trump presidency.
All 3 appointed by Democrats. All 3 appropriately replaced by a Republican. But what we think is
it was appropriate that James Comey. Why do they have 10-year terms?
Well, no, I think it was appropriate that he not be the director of the FBI. I think a lot of this is his fault. I think he should have resigned. He should have looked in the mirror and said to himself, I am not trusted by Democrats. I am not trusted by Republicans. I am not trusted by the American public. And he should have resigned. Yeah. Now, he didn't, and that put the president in a difficult position. Let's put that picture back up.
Laura, I haven't forgotten about you, but let's put the picture back up. The 3 people who are investigating this president or the administration fired?
Well, Yates was a holdover. She was going to go. It was only a question of which day she was going to go and be replaced. Generally, the U.S. attorney is replaced. And Comey is a unique situation. He really messed up. Yeah. He may have changed the results of an election. He could not be the head of the FBI with credibility.
Yates wasn't investigating, but she was the acting attorney, attorney general. Do you find this fishy at all, Laura?
Absolutely, I do. I mean, this is obviously a fig leaf, and the president was looking for a reason to fire James Comey. But you know what? James Comey gave him a reason. Everyone's focusing on the fact that he had a testimony back last summer as one of the reasons why he should have been fired, perhaps by then Attorney General Lynch. But last week's testimony gave additional reasoning. Remember, he had the opportunity to say whether or not he was wrong for having done what he did, and whether or not his motivation was in furtherance of the credibility of the department and of the FBI, or whether it was some type of gratuitous task or journey for him personally. In the letter that I saw today from the Deputy Attorney General, I have a slightly different reading than what we talked about before. And my take on it is that they were focusing on this particular point in time and Comey's refusal to accept responsibility that he was in fact wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still a pretextual reason, but he walked right into the actual trap and gave him the reason that they needed. And remember also, he said, my only choices were either to speak or conceal. And it showed a complete lapse of judgment to recognize there was a very third obvious opportunity for him, which was to follow the protocol of the department. And I have to say, as a former prosecutor with the Department of Justice, he was wrong to usurp the role of the Attorney General. And what he said was, if you remember correctly, he said, I actually had the nerve to call the Attorney General, then Lynch, and say, I'm going to have a press conference, but I'm not going to tell you what it's about. That was insubordination. And he renewed and provided a different and a more comprehensive reason for that last week. So he walked into it. I think it was a bit of bravado and a bit of his lack of foresight to recognize that he had walked into a trap.
I agree with everything you've just said. That is so rare, but I agree with every single word you've just said.
I sure don't.
Look, go ahead.
No, I mean, look, I think Comey made some mistakes in the Hillary Clinton investigation. I agree on that point. But these were not, it had nothing to do with his firing today. If he was going to be fired for his behavior with the Hillary Clinton investigation, he should have been fired on January 20th. Plus, there is currently an Inspector General's investigation of Comey going on. Why didn't they wait for that? The only reason he's being fired is because he's investigating the president. This whole Hillary Clinton thing is just preposterously irrelevant. Does anyone really believe that Donald Trump fired James Comey because he was too mean to Hillary Clinton?
Absolutely not. I don't think that, and I think the question itself assumes a hyperbole that I have not given. I don't believe that the reason that James Comey was actually fired was because of simply the fact that he was, abusing his power last year. I think the curious dates here are, when did Rosenstein take office? About 14 days ago. When did Comey testify before Congress again and really have the audacity to talk about why he thought he was still justified in having come forward?
But
6 days ago. Now, I'm not saying it is relevant in terms of what I think they will come out as giving the comprehensive basis for why he was fired. That's what they're going to say. Now, what I think actually happened was they were looking for a reason, and he gave them one because he was ignorant to the fact that he had not honored his initial role as no longer being a prosecutor and the final arbiter, but as somebody who wanted to, in his, I'm paraphrasing here, to put on the cape. And when he was capped off by his furious and frustration with Loretta Lynch on the tarmac, he said, that was what capped it off for me. Well, what capped it off for him at that moment in time was he still believes that he had the right and the authority to act the way he did.
Here's the question we don't know the answer to. Here's the question we don't know the answer to. Rosenstein's letter on its own is absolutely correct. Rosenstein absolutely believes that he should be fired because of the way he handled the Clinton thing. Remember, Rosenstein is nonpartisan. The question is, did President Trump ask Rosenstein to come up with that letter, or did Rosenstein come up with a letter on his own and then President Trump say, aha, I have an independent man of great integrity saying I should fire him, I want to fire him, and now I have the reason. So I think that's the real question. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Jeff, and you know what? His track record here, Alan, you make a good point. His track record here is somebody who has said, when you talk about the travel ban and Giuliani, I want to do something that's wrong, figure out a way to make it the right thing to do and the right and justifiable thing. Now we have an opportunity again. I want to get rid of James Comey. Give me a reason. Oh, did he give you a reason? That's the one we're going to go with. His track record makes this suspicious and justifiably so suspicious.
And he can eliminate the suspicion by appointing a terrific woman or man to be head of the FBI and agreeing to have an independent investigation. Then what Jeffrey is speculating about, although it may be true, will be proved to be untrue by his later actions.
That's all after the fact, though, Jeff.
Yeah,
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think my learned colleagues here, my betters, are overthinking this whole thing.
I agree with you.
Is that, they wanted to get rid of this guy, and they got rid of him.
Who's
and
the
Hillary is Sessions and well, I mean, I don't know. I am baffled by Rosenstein's involvement in this whole matter because
you know him.
I don't know him well, but I interviewed him and I had heard nothing but good things about him.
Do you think that Rosenstein at this point just came up and said, you know what? I think he should be fired, especially considering his testimony yesterday.
I don't know.
We can find that out.
I don't know what Rosenstein's role in all of this is, but there has to be some person in the United States government who could just open their eyes and say, you don't fire the FBI director when he's investigating you. You don't do this because the only other time there's been a comparable event in all of American history is October 20th, 1973, the Saturday Night Massacre when President Nixon fired Archibald Cox. That's the only comparable event, and somebody in that administration has to have said, you know, this is not going to look good.
I think one of the most important things you said tonight, Jeffrey, was sometimes the answer is right in front of you. The most obvious answer is the answer, instead of looking around corners and for other answers.
But sometimes it's more complex.
Yes, sometimes, but rarely. All right, I want to thank you all. President Trump offering no further comment tonight after firing FBI Director James Comey, but sending out presidential counselor Kellyanne Conway, who said this to Anderson.